All right, ready to dive into some financials?
Always.
Today we're looking at Subros Ltd's Q2 FY25 performance.
Using their investor presentation and regulatory filings.
Oh, got it.
Nice.
And just a quick reminder for anyone who might not know, Subros is like the king of AC and thermal products in India.
Yeah, they're huge.
Passenger cars, trucks, even railway coaches and houses.
Seriously, they're everywhere.
So what we're trying to do today is go a little deeper than just, what are the numbers?
Right.
What's the story behind them?
Yeah, like what does this tell us about Subros and maybe even the bigger picture of the Indian automobile market?
Exactly. So let's kick things off with their revenue growth.
Okay.
For Q2 FY25, it came in at 828.31 crore. That's almost a 2% increase year on year.
Which, 2% might not sound like a huge jump.
Right.
But you got to think about what's happening in the market right now.
Yeah, it's not exactly smooth sailing.
Not at all. So the fact that they're growing, even a little bit, it actually says a lot.
So they're at least keeping up.
At least yet. But the question is, are they pulling ahead of the pack or just kind of staying in the middle?
Good point. And revenue isn't the only thing looking up.
Oh, yeah.
Their profitability is way up, too.
Really?
EBITDA is up over 13%.
Wow.
Profit before tax, almost 17%.
Impressive.
And get this, their profit after tax, a whole 36% higher than last year.
That's huge. Someone's doing something right over there.
Big time. So gotta ask, what's driving all of this?
Well, if we look at their investor presentation, they're
Yeah.
talking about new projects. They won a big contract for truck air conditioning.
Right.
And they started production for some new car models, like the Maruti Suzuki Franx.
Okay, so those are definitely adding to their revenue.
Definitely. But we can't forget about the things that are happening outside of Subros, too. The external stuff.
Like what?
Well, they mentioned the commodity prices are softening, meaning the raw materials are costing them less.
Oh, that's a big help.
Huge. Makes a huge difference to their bottom line.
But then they also mention supply chain problems and currency fluctuation.
Right, those are global issues right now.
Yeah, everyone's dealing with them.
Exactly. So is Subros somehow dodging all of that? Or are those problems maybe hidden somewhere in these really good numbers? That's the mystery we need to solve.
It's like they've got some secret formula.
Well, they've definitely figured out how to navigate those problems well enough to be really profitable.
True, but are there cracks we're not seeing?
Maybe. The documents you sent don't really break down how their different business segments are performing.
Okay.
Besides that, their passenger vehicle thermal business grew 19%.
Right.
But overall, they're doing well, which means they're either really good at managing those risks.
Or they just haven't hit them that hard yet.
Yeah. Either way, it's impressive.
All right, so maybe they're doing some Jedi mind tricks to deal with those challenges.
Possibly. Something to look into.
Definitely. Now let's zoom out a little bit.
Oh.
Think bigger picture. What does Subros' performance tell us about the entire Indian automobile market?
Well, their growth, particularly in passenger vehicles, it suggests that the car market in India is recovering, maybe even booming.
Interesting.
And that new truck AC project, that might mean that the commercial vehicle sector is heating up too.
Pun intended.
Maybe a little.
So it's not just Subros, it seems like the whole industry is getting a boost.
It does seem that way.
And Subros seems to be betting big on innovation to stay ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, how so?
Well, they're investing heavily in EV technologies.
Smart move. That's a big growth area.
Definitely. And they're making sure they comply with all the latest emissions standards, too. BSVI, RDE, CAFE.
I think you're saying we're not just going along for the ride, we're actually building the cars of the future.
I like that.
They're not just reacting to the market, they're shaping it.
Totally. So before we move on, let me ask you this.
Sure.
If you were an investor, would these results make you want to put your money into Subros?
It's a good question. And honestly, for me, these results are pretty encouraging.
Really?
Yeah, they're hitting all the right notes, strong growth, expanding profitability, a real focus on innovation.
Sounds good.
But
There's always a but, isn't there?
there is, because no investment is completely risk-free.
True.
The global economy is still pretty unpredictable, and that could affect even the strongest companies.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
And even if the market does well overall, there's always competition.
That's true.
New companies are popping up, especially in the EV space, and the existing competitors aren't going to just sit back and watch.
So Subros has to keep innovating, keep adapting.
Absolutely. They can't get complacent.
It's like running a marathon where the finish line keeps moving.
Exactly. And we don't know for sure how successful their EV investments will be.
Yeah, it's a risky game.
It is, with a lot of players.
So it seems like a promising situation, but with some potential roadblocks ahead.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment.
Okay, I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Sounds good.
But before we go, we want to hear from you, our listener. What are your thoughts on Subros's performance so far? Anything surprise you? Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear your perspective.
Absolutely. We'd love to know what you think. Welcome back.
All right, let's keep digging into Subros.
Yeah, we've got those regulatory filings you sent over.
Oh, yeah, those.
They might seem kind of boring at first glance, but trust me, there's some really good stuff hidden in there.
Okay, I'm listening. What kind of stuff are we talking about? Like secret formulas for success?
Uh-huh. Not exactly, but definitely valuable insights.
All right, give me an example.
Okay, so if you look at their standalone financials,
Mm-hmm.
they give us a really detailed view of how Subros is performing.
Okay.
For example, their net sales for Q2 FY25 slightly higher than both the same period last year and the previous quarter.
So they're consistently going up.
Yeah, which is pretty impressive considering how unpredictable the market has been.
Definitely. So what's behind that consistent growth?
Well, one key factor is their amazing cost management.
Oh, right. We were talking about those commodity prices dropping.
Exactly, and that's reflected right here in their
Oh.
financials.
So,
Look at their material costs as a percentage of net sales. It's gone down from 74.54% in Q2 FY23 to 72.16% in Q2 FY25.
wow. So they're getting more efficient with every rupee they spend?
Absolutely, and that's essential in a competitive market like this.
For sure. So it's not just about external factors helping them out, right?
Nope, Subros is actively working to improve things too.
Oh.
They're implementing something called Value Analysis Value Engineering, VAVE for short.
That's that.
It's basically a way to make their products more valuable by cutting costs without sacrificing quality or how well the products work.
Ah, so it's like they're decluttering their business, getting rid of anything that's not adding value.
Exactly. They're streamlining everything.
Smart. And are they doing anything else to optimize their spending?
Oh yeah, they're always looking for different ways to source materials, and they're constantly analyzing whether it's better to make things themselves or buy them from someone else.
So they're not just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. They're actively making decisions to improve.
Exactly, and that proactive approach is a big part of why they're doing so well.
Makes sense. Now, what about their other expenses? Like employee costs and operating expenses. Those must be going up with all this growth and expansion, right?
They have gone up a bit, but not by much.
Okay.
The increase in employee cost is probably from things like salary adjustments or maybe hiring new people.
Which makes sense if they're growing.
Right, and the rise in other expenses, well, that's probably because they're investing in all these new projects and business activities.
It costs money to make money, right?
Pretty much, and the interesting thing is, even with these slightly higher expenses, their EBITDA margin has actually improved.
Seriously?
Yeah, it reached 10.03% in Q2 FY25 compared to 9.01% in the same quarter last year.
So they're actually getting better at turning revenue into profit even with those extra costs.
Precisely.
That's pretty impressive.
It is. They're striking a good balance between growth and careful spending.
Now, you know how we were talking about Subros expanding into non-automotive areas like home AC and refrigeration trucks?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
I'm really curious how those are doing.
Me too, but unfortunately, these reports don't give us a lot of details on those specific segments.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Like a hidden chapter waiting to be revealed.
Exactly.
Speaking of their story, one thing that stood out to me in their investor presentation was how much they emphasize meeting all those regulatory changes and new industry standards.
Oh, yeah, like those BSVI emission standards, RDE, CAFE.
And of course, all the investments in EV technology.
Right, they're not messing around.
So just to make sure everyone's on the same page,
Yeah.
BSVI is essentially India's version of those really strict Euro 6 emission norms, and RDE, that stands for real driving emissions. So it measures emissions in real-world conditions, not just in a lab.
Important distinction.
And then CAFE, corporate average fuel economy, that sets fuel efficiency goals for car manufacturers.
Right, those are some big initiatives.
And Subros is showing that they're not just following the rules.
Yeah.
They're actively designing their products to exceed those standards.
Exactly. It's like they're going above and beyond.
It's not just about keeping cars cool anymore.
Right.
It's about being environmentally conscious, too.
They're becoming leaders in sustainable automotive technology.
I like that.
And they're not stopping there. They're also taking steps to deal with those pesky foreign exchange fluctuations
Oh, how are they doing that?
through hedging, basically protecting themselves from big swings in currency values.
Smart.
And to handle those unpredictable commodity prices, they're using back-to-back arrangements with their customers.
What does that mean?
It means they're locking in raw material prices at a fixed rate so they don't get hit with any surprises later on.
Ah, so they're thinking ahead, planning for everything.
Always thinking ahead. Very strategic.
Like the chess grandmasters of the AC world.
Uh-huh. I like that.
So they're managing costs, they're being environmentally conscious. What else are they doing to be more efficient?
Well, they're doing things like consolidating their plans,
Okay.
optimizing their shifts,
Makes sense.
switching to renewable energy sources,
Nice. Going green.
and even automating some of their key processes.
So they're not just green in their technology, they're green in how they operate, too.
It's a holistic approach, for sure.
Very impressive. It seems like they're really committed to creating a sustainable and profitable business.
Definitely. And they're not just riding the wave of a recovering market. They're actively shaping their own success.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's take a step back and think about what all of this means for investors
Good idea.
and what it might mean for Subros's future.
Yeah, that's the big question.
And that's exactly where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time digging into Subros.
Yeah, we've looked at their numbers, their strategy.
And honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about them, you know?
Yeah, I get it.
They seem to be doing all the right things.
They are. Growth, profitability, innovation.
It's like they've figured out the secret formula for success.
Right, but remember,
Oh, here comes the but.
there's always a but.
Haha. All right, lay it on me.
Well, no business operates in a bubble.
True.
Things happen outside of their control.
Yeah, that's the real world for you.
Exactly. So the big question for investors is, can they keep this up?
Right. Can they maintain this momentum?
Exactly. Or are there some challenges lurking around the corner that we haven't considered yet?
Okay, so let's put on our skeptical hats for a minute.
Right, let's do it.
What could potentially derail Subros's success?
Well, the global economy is always a bit of a wild card.
Yeah, true.
Inflation, interest rate hikes, geopolitical stuff, all that can create some serious headwinds, even for the strongest companies.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen out there in the world.
And even if the market as a whole does well,
Mm-hmm.
there's always competition to worry about.
True, can't forget about that.
New companies are coming onto the scene,
Yeah.
especially in that EV space.
Yeah, they're hungry.
And the companies that are already out there, they're not going to just sit back and let Subros take over.
So Subros has to keep innovating, keep adapting to stay ahead.
Absolutely. They can't afford to get complacent.
Speaking of innovating, let's talk about their EV investments.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big gamble, you know?
It is a big bet.
What if people don't adopt EVs as quickly as everyone thinks they will?
Right.
Or what if Subros technology falls behind?
Those are definitely valid concerns. The EV market is changing so rapidly.
It is.
There's no guarantee of
It's
success.
a risk, for sure.
But imagine if they do succeed, if they become like the top supplier of thermal management systems for EVs in India.
That would be huge.
Game changer. And their experience with traditional AC systems gives them a real advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they understand how thermal management works in vehicles,
Right.
and they already have strong relationships with the big car manufacturers.
Makes sense. So it's not like they're starting from nothing.
Exactly. They've got a solid foundation to build on.
And we can't forget about their move into those non-automotive areas.
Right, the home AC and refrigeration truck.
Exactly. Those could provide some steady income even if the car market hits a rough patch.
Smart move. It's like diversifying their portfolio,
Spreading the risk.
Yeah, and as India keeps developing, the demand for cooling solutions is only going to go up.
Makes sense. So to sum it all up, Subros seems to be doing incredibly well.
They are riding a wave of growth, making strategic decisions.
And investing in the future.
But as we've talked about, there are always challenges and uncertainties.
Right. The global economy, the competition, the success of their EV gamble, all of that could impact how things go for them.
It's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
Definitely. But I have to say, based on everything we've seen,
Yeah.
I think they're in a good position to handle those challenges.
I agree. They've shown they're adaptable, innovative, and they understand their market.
Totally. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, shoot.
So during this whole deep dive,
Mhm.
we've focused on Subros's role as a supplier to the auto industry,
Right. They're meeting the demands of the car makers.
innovating within those boundaries. But what if they change the game?
Oh, interesting. What do you mean?
What if, with all their knowledge of thermal management and EV tech,
Yeah,
they actually became the trendsetters, the thought leaders.
I like it.
Instead of just reacting to the industry, they start influencing it.
That's a bold vision.
It is, but they have the expertise, the connections, and based on what we've seen, the ambition to pull it off.
Yeah, I think you're right. They could really make a difference.
So as we finish up our deep dive into Subros, the question for our listeners is, will they stick to being a follower or will they step up and become a leader, shaping the future of transportation in India and beyond?
Great question. Something for everyone to ponder.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll wrap things up.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.